Hello, everyone, and welcome to Barca News. It is January 25th, 2026. And today we're going to be talking or analyzing the match that just ended an hour ago between Barcelona and Real Oviedo, where Barcelona won 3-0 with goals of Dani Olmo, Coutinho, and a golazo, aso by Lamine freaking Yamal. I have, by the way, I've made up my mind. I think I've reached a conclusion. Lamine Yamal doesn't know how to score simple goals. I think that's my conclusion. Lamine Yamal only knows how to score incredibly difficult, complicated, and beautiful goals. But anyways, Barcelona won 3-0 against Real Oviedo, an important victory. Why? Because yesterday Real Madrid defeated Villarreal 2-0 with two goals by Kylian Mbappe, the second goal being from the penalty spot because, of course, Real Madrid can only win through penalties. But anyways, given that Real Madrid won their respective match yesterday, they jumped up to the top spot of La Liga table. So today, Barcelona needed to win in order to regain the top spot of La Liga table, and that's exactly what happened. Barcelona scoring 3 goals, taking this victory home, taking home 3 very important points, regaining their spot at the top of La Liga table. So now, once again, Barcelona are number 1 with Real Madrid number 2 because they are the greatest collectors of silver medals. Yes, you heard that right. Now, another important thing about today's victory is that Hansi Flick was able to rotate the squad between the players who started and the players who came off the bench. And that's very important because, of course, midweek, we have the Champions League match against FC Copenhagen, where not only Barcelona need to win, but they need to win by several goals in order to guarantee the qualification into the round of 16 of the Champions League. Otherwise, if we don't finish in the top 8, we're going to have to play 2 playoff matches where, even though I believe that Barcelona would be able to win those 2 playoff matches, it's still, you don't want to add 2 more matches to an incredibly busy and hectic calendar. So Champions League match, we need to win. We need to score a lot of goals to finish top 8, qualify directly into the round of 16. So today was an important victory, again, not only because we regained the top spot of La Liga, but also because Flick was able to rotate the players, and those players will arrive fresh against FC Copenhagen, ready to get that victory and ready to score several goals. Anyways, let's talk about the match. And as always, I do like to first review the lineup, then talk about the general sensation of the team and how the match went about. And then finally, we'll talk about specific players. But let's talk about the lineup because this is the lineup that Hansi Flick chose today. Of course, Juan Garcia in goal. We had Eric Garcia and Cancel. Actually, this is the SofaScore lineup, but it was actually more like Pau Cubarsí and Eric Garcia as our 2 center backs, with Gerard Martin and Joao Cancelo playing as our 2 fullbacks. We also saw Frankie de Jong and Marc Casado in a double pivot. Of course, Pedri injured. He's going to be out for a month. And then we had Dani Olmo in the attacking midfield position ahead of Fermin Lopez. Fermin Lopez getting some rest today. Rafinha, Lamine Yamal, and Robert Lewandowski. So right off the bat in the starting lineup, we had both Alejandro Balde and Jules Koundé off on the bench, so that was good. They get some rest. They've been playing every single match. Plus, their form has been awful. So hopefully, this rest will help them not only arrive fresh to the Champions League match, but also arrive in better form. Also, Dani Olmo ahead of Fermin Lopez. Fermin Lopez has been accumulating a lot of minutes, so that's also good. He also got to get some rest. Then, of course, later on in the match, we saw Rafinha, Lamine, and Olmo all come off, so they got to rest too. So that's very important. And, of course, we did give some minutes to Marc Bernal and Rooney Bardarji. So very good as far as player rotations, players getting to rest, other players getting minutes. So very, very important ahead of the Champions League match against FC Copenhagen. Now, let's talk about the match itself because we had 2 incredibly different halves. 2 incredibly different halves. The first half, Barcelona was absolute trash. They were garbage. They were awful. I've never seen such bad play in quite some time. The team was so slow. They were so sluggish. They couldn't move the ball around. They couldn't complete passes. They were losing balls. They weren't pressing up high. It was just an absolute shit show, symbolic performance by FC Barcelona. And we were lucky that we were playing against a team as weak as Real Oviedo because, of course, let's not forget Real Oviedo. They're staying at the bottom of the table, 20th spot. They just got promoted from 2nd division this season. So they have very, very little tools to cause us damage. And thankfully, that was the case because given how bad our performance was during the first half, had we played against a better team, I think that better team could have been able to do some damage or punish us. But thankfully, that wasn't the case. We played horribly, but Real Oviedo weren't able to take advantage of that, and we still ended the first half 0-0. Now, let's review why Barcelona were so terrible in that first half. Well, I think it's a combination of things. First of all, our midfield was absolute garbage. Our midfield was not generating any play. Our midfield was not stopping Real Oviedo's counterattacks. Our midfield was absolutely non-existent. Now, as far as generating attacks or building play, it was a really bad match for our midfield. On one hand, Frankie de Jong, not a good match at all. And I think it has two parts of it. First of all, the first part is that we've all seen how when Frankie de Jong without Pedri, his level really drops. And today, we saw it again. Pedri wasn't on the field. Frankie de Jong was struggling. The other part, the second part on why Frankie de Jong, I believe, was struggling, I think is because how he was playing with Marc Casado. Frankie de Jong and Pedri are two players who have a lot of freedom, a lot of mobility. They like to move around. A lot of times they even switch positions and we don't even notice. Marc Casado is more of a positional midfielder. He sticks to his position and he controls the area that his position is in. He's not really a player that's good at moving around and getting that freedom. So I think because of that, we constantly saw Marc Casado kind of stepping into Frankie de Jong's zone or Frankie de Jong's area. And as a result, Marc Casado was getting in the way of Frankie de Jong. So between Frankie de Jong dropping level because Pedri wasn't there, and between Marc Casado constantly getting in the way of Frankie de Jong, we saw Frankie de Jong that wasn't really able to build, wasn't able to, direct the play from the midfield. Dani Olmo, besides the goal, same thing. We saw him constantly out of position, constantly not knowing exactly where to position himself, where to go, where to run to. So between Frankie and Olmo not being able to build and Marc Casado constantly getting in the way of Frankie, our midfield was not existing. It was not building any plays. It was not creating anything. So Barcelona wasn't creating anything. In fact, I think the first chance that we got during the first half was Rafinha's shot at the 40-something minute. I mean, it was absolute disaster. And that's just from the attacking perspective. Defensively speaking, our midfield was also non-existent. And as a result, our defensive line was the first and last resort, which is not how it's supposed to work, right? Your first defensive resort is your attackers. The second line of defense is your midfield. And then your center backs and fullbacks are supposed to act as a last line of defense. But today, given that the midfield was non-existent, our defensive line was the first and last defensive resort. But thankfully, again, Real Oviedo don't really have a lot of tools to punish us with, so our defenders were able to handle that danger, and Real Oviedo didn't really cause us any problems. Another problem, by the way, with Barcelona's buildup was our fullbacks. Of course, Cancelo's not really a player that can build from the back. Neither is Gerard Martí. So I think between all that, again, our fullbacks not generating anything, our midfield not generating anything. Barcelona didn't generate anything in the first half, and we went to the halftime 0-0. Another thing that can describe the first half, terrible referee. Not only did Barcelona play terribly, we had a terrible, terrible referee. And we get to talk about the referee today because we won, right? We didn't lose today, so this is not like an excuse to blame it on the ref. The ref robbed us. No, we won, so we get to talk about the ref. The ref was an absolute shit show. That yellow card on Gerard Martín, that's not a yellow. How the fuck is that a yellow? Also, Real Oviedo's goalkeeper grabs the ball inside the box. The referee decides that it's outside the box and gives Barcelona a free kick. What the fuck is that? Also, every foul that Real Oviedo committed, no problem. Every time Barcelona did something, foul or a free kick. It's like, what is going on with La Liga's refereeing? It's kind of like Manolo, the coach of Espanyol, yesterday said, or I think it's the day before, he said, when a coach does bad, he gets fired. When a player does bad, he gets transferred. When the referee does bad, nothing. They're here. And today's refereeing was absolutely awful. Lewandowski was tackled 3 times, like hugged and taken to the ground. No foul, no yellow card, nothing. Horrible, horrible refereeing. But anyways, I don't want to keep talking about the referees. We all know how terrible, mediocre, and average these referees are. But first half, terrible performance by Barcelona. Second half, we've gotten used to this, right? Halftime comes, Flick goes in, makes tactical changes, sure whips out a belt, hits these players. I don't know what he does, But Flick always is able to do something during the halftime where the second half the team comes out looking better, and that's exactly what happened. Barcelona came out the second half doing much better. They actually started pressing, something that they weren't doing the first half, and as a result of Barcelona's high press came the first and the second goal. The first goal, terrible mistake by Real Oviedo's defense, trying to pass the ball inside the box. Lamine Yamal pressing high, steals the ball. It ends up landing to Dani Olmo. Dani Olmo, beautiful shot to the far post. Nothing the Real Oviedo goalkeeper can do, and the ball goes past him, and it's a goal. Second one, another terrible mistake by Real Oviedo, which is a pass by a back pass by the Real Oviedo player to his goalkeeper. Rafinha, as always, pressing. He's able to get to that ball, steal it, and then he beautifully chips the Real Oviedo goalkeeper and scores a goal. And then finally, Lamine Yamal's masterclass of a goal, because Dani almost sends a cross into the box to Lamine Yamal. The cross is behind Lamine Yamal, and he's able to stop his momentum because he's running forward. He's making an inside run into the box. He's able to hit the brakes, takes 2 steps back, and do a scissor kick for a ball that was behind him. That's even more difficult than a scissor kick, a normal scissor kick. Remember, scissor kicks are very difficult, but at least the ball is right there. You can calculate it. You can hit it. This is a ball that's behind you. So you have to stop. You have to track back and then do a scissor kick in a weird angle because the ball is still behind him. I mean, this is already more difficult than a regular scissor kick, which is already difficult in itself, but an absolute beautiful goal by Lamine Yamal. And then the rest of history, Barcelona win 3-0. And of course, Hansi Flick is able to rotate the players more. We saw Lamine Yamal come off. We saw Olmo come off. We saw Rafinha come off. And that's, of course, going to be very important for that midweek match against the Champions League. But anyways, not much more to say about the general how the match went and how the sensation of the team is. Again, terrible first half by Barcelona. Much better second half. And we take that home 3 very important points and an important victory. Now, as far as the players itself, the only players I think I want to highlight here is, of course, is Cancelo. I want to talk about Joao Cancelo because once again, we see the same Cancelo that was at Barcelona under Xavi Hernandez, where if you have a match where there's a lot of back and forth, Cancelo is a great player for that. If you have a match where it's a little bit shambolic, a little bit chaotic, Cancelo's perfect for that because he's all over the place. But if you want a player that can slow things down, control the match, Cancelo's not your guy. Cancelo is not your guy. He thrives in chaos, but he's not a player that can actually pause things and control things. So that's just what I wanted to say about Joao Cancelo. And besides that, I don't really have much more to say. Marc Bernal got some minutes. That's good. I think we're going to see more and more Marc Bernal as the season goes by. Lewandowski, not a good match by Lewy. He tried it. He kept trying, but things weren't going his way. Even Rafinha, up to his golazo, wasn't really having that good of a match. Olmo wasn't really having a good match. Lamine Yamal scored a golazo, also not good of a match. I think today it was more of our defenders' moment to shine. I think Garcia had a really good match. Eddie Garcia had a really good match. And besides that, I can't really say anything good about the rest of the players because this just was not a good first half by Barca, which again lacked everything. They weren't generating, they weren't moving the ball around, they weren't creating chances, they weren't pressing up high. And that's why I think the first half was terrible. But thankfully, this is Real Oviedo. Now, the silver lining of Barcelona playing this bad and still winning is that I think we've gotten to a point with these players under Hansi Flick that they can play badly and still win matches because that's how good they are. Now, of course, when they do go 100%, we've seen how much better they are and how they can destroy a lot of teams. But I guess the silver lining is against these weaker teams, Barcelona can play at 80 or 70 or 60% and still win. And that's important too because you can't always play at 100%. And also you don't want to play always at 100% because sometimes you have to conserve your energy, right? We have the Champions League match around the corner. So maybe it's not a completely bad thing that today Barcelona were playing at a 60 or 70% intensity because after all, they still won. They still took home 3 important points and they're not going to be as tired or maybe they will be rested for the Champions League match. So I guess that's the silver lining of seeing Barcelona completely bomb the first half and still taking home the victory. Anyways, that is all I got to say about today's match. Let's do some comments and then we'll end this. Let's see what everybody's saying. Wait, where is my... Why don't I have... Right, there it is. There we go. P4K Chema says, Mo, I think today's game shows why Lewa needs to be replaced. Thankful for everything, but we need a new striker. Yeah, not a good match by Lewy today. He tried it, but he just was not having a good match. He was having an off match. I don't think today's match shows why we need to replace Lewandowski. I think we need to replace Lewandowski because he's 37, he's going to be 38 in June, so it's time to get a young striker. But I don't think it's because today's match specifically, even though, again, he did not have a good match. Paulie says, yes, Lewa is a legend, but it's the signs of time. And Ezekiel says, hi, Mo, good job. Thank you, my friend. And Alexander World says, Mo, Arsenal lost to Man United. Flick needs to take notes, so if we play in future games, we can have better chance of beating them. I mean, look, I'm sure Flick, I don't think we have to tell Flick how to prepare for matches. I'm sure whenever he's going to play, he plays against someone, I'm sure he watches tapes to figure out their weaknesses and strength. So I'm sure if we ever get to play against Arsenal, Flick will look at these tapes. Vodka Stani says Barca was so bad because Oviedo was pressing like hell in the first half. I don't think that's what it was. It's Real Oviedo. I mean, a team like Barca should be able to easily get it from under that press. I think it just has to do with how bad our midfield was, with the build-up, how bad our fullbacks were, and the fact that we weren't pressing. So since we weren't really generating anything, and we weren't even generating through the press because we weren't pressing at all, I think that's why Barcelona were just not doing anything during the first half. The protester says, hi, Mo, finally catch the live today. Welcome, my friend, and Sanjog with the donation. Thank you so much, my friend. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for always supporting the channel. But Sanjog says, I think it's very clear we need a world-class defender. Gerard, even though he's good, but you can see the difference when he was replaced by Eric. Yeah, 100%. I think Eric Garcia is just on another level. Gerard Martin, Gerard Martin is a good temporary solution. Let's put it that way, right? He's a good temporary solution for now. He's not someone that you want to be depending on all the time, right? Gerard Maldini, I think he's a good player to have on the bench. Whether you can have him in a place of Balde and give some rest to Balde, or put him in right next to Pau Cubarsí and give rest to Eric or whomever, I think that's a good option, but it's not really an option you want to depend on all the time, right? I think, yeah, we need to sign a center back that can play on the left, and obviously still have Gerard Martin there, ready to substitute with Balde and whoever we sign. But yes, you're right as far as that. Thank you for your donation again, my friend. And Georgia says Texas is not meant for the cold. Yeah, I mean, you guys are getting hammered right now. I mean, not as bad as obviously the Northeast. New York right now is in freezing weather. They're getting buried by snow. Meanwhile, I'm here in Argentina. It's freaking 90 degrees out. So I definitely escaped a big one. I escaped an Arctic storm, but I actually do like the snow, but I don't mind having some warm weather for the next week as a good escape. Mashu, let's keep it at Mashu. Says, Mo, I'm from Ghana, watching you live. Visca Barca, my friend. Thank you for watching and thank you for your comment. And George says, but nothing heats the heart more than a Barca win. Amen, my friend. And whiskey also. Whiskey warms the heart. But yes, you are right. And Alexander says, Mo, Flick has to take notes from Arsenal. So if we play in the future, I mean, again, what's the point of you watch Arsenal? If you want to figure out how to beat Arsenal, it's because you're about to play Arsenal. You're not just going to be like, oh, let me see how I can beat Arsenal and I'm never going to play against them. It's like, I might as well go and take notes on how to beat, I don't know, River Plate and Boca Juniors. Like, who gives a shit? You prepare for matches that you're actually going to play. So if we know Arsenal is coming up, we actually have a match against them, then yes, Flick should take notes. Otherwise, why the fuck would you study a team and how to beat a team that you're never going to play against? I mean, why? Are we also going to start studying every single team out there on how to beat them? Denny says, I don't really think our team can compete for Champions League. Not yet. If the team continues to improve, then yes. But right now, I only see us repeating what we did last season, which is La Liga, Copa del Rey, and Spanish Super Cup, which we already won. But yeah, no. There's a lot of improvements that need to be done if we want to aspire to win the Champions League. And Barcelona says, happy for the win. Disappointing first half. Lewa should not play a full 90. We miss Pedri so much. Happy for the win as well. And yes, first half was absolute garbage, trash. I wish I could borrow that Men in Black flash and just delete that first half out of my brain. And no, Lewy cannot withstand full 90 minutes. I think Flick knows that. He knows that. But unfortunately, with Ferran injured and with not many options, he ended up playing. I'm thinking that maybe it's going to be Ferran is going to be playing the Champions League, and that's why Flick kept him the entire match, because I feel like maybe what's his name, Rashford could have came in for him. But we'll see what happens on Wednesday. But my guess is that Lewy's not going to play, or at least is not going to start on Wednesday against FC Copenhagen, since he played the full 90 minutes today, because he's just not in. He just can't do it, right? Physically speaking, because of his age, he just can't do it. Edwin says, do you think Bernal will be getting more chances during Pedri's absence, specifically starting minutes? Yes, I think so. And I also think that Bernal is just going to be getting more and more minutes, period, because that was the plan. The plan was the first half of the season, just give him a few minutes here and there, but mostly focus on practice and training, so he can, slowly get back into shape and form. And second half is to give him more and more minutes gradually. And I think that's the plan. So Pedri or no Pedri, I think we're going to be seeing a lot more Bernal. Of course, with Pedri injured, then yes, there's a bigger chance that Bernal gets more minutes. But I think he was going to get more minutes during the second half either way. Barcelona says, do we have a return date for Gavi? Gavi is set to come back February, so next month, right around the corner. But of course, don't expect him to, be getting minutes right away. It's going to be a gradual return for Gavi, just like we did the first time with him and just like we're doing right now with Marc Bernal. And Alexander World says, Mo, can feel it, Rayo good draw on Madrid. Look, Madrid is going to drop points, period. And why do I say that? Because they're still the same shitty team from last season under Ancelotti, from the first half of the season under Xabi Alonso, and the same right now with Arbiola, right? Madridistas all of a sudden are like, oh, we're back. Arbiola's a great coach. And it's like, look, if you think a coach can turn things around in 1 week, you are either incredibly naive or incredibly stupid, or maybe even both. Maybe you're naive and stupid. No coach can turn things around in 1 week. Even Flick, who's a miracle worker, he arrived in Barcelona during a preseason. He spent 3 or 4 weeks training the team. Then they went on the preseason tour, where that was another 2-3 weeks, and the team played, I think, 3 or 4 matches. Then he came back, and there was another 2 weeks of training, plus the Joan Gamper Trophy match. So by the time the season came, Flick had already been training the team for like 8 to 10 weeks, and they had already played 4 or 5 matches. And still, despite all that time together, despite all those matches played together, it still took Barcelona to the 3rd week of La Liga, right? Until they actually kicked it in high gear, because the first 2 weeks, Barcelona won by a 1-goal difference. And it wasn't until the 3rd week of La Liga that actually Barcelona started playing Flick ball. And that took 10 to 12 weeks, 5-6 matches. That's how long it took. And even then, once we hit the month of November, Barcelona took a dip, because that's how new projects are. First, it takes some time for the players to learn the system. And once they learn it, there's still ups and downs until they actually perfect it. So if you think that Arbiola turned things around in 1 week, you're incredibly stupid or naive or both, right? So the fact that Real Madrid won against Monaco 6-1 is not because Arbiola turned things around, because that's impossible. It's a combination of that Monaco were absolute trash, because I watched part of that match. They were losing balls in like the most dangerous areas. In fact, they lost 4 balls that all turned into 4 goals. And B, not only was Monaco trash, what this also shows us, that win, is that these players, the Real Madrid players, that locker room, they decide when to show up. And they decided to show up that match, and that's why they got the victory. But here's the problem with players that decide when they want to show up and when they don't want to show up, is that sooner or later, they're going to go back to their old selfish habits, and then going to once again decide not to show up, and it's going to be the same shit, right? I mean, they did it to Ancelotti, they did it to Xabi Alonso. Why do you think they're not going to do it to Arbiola? I mean, the only way Real Madrid really start changing things around is by A, getting a world-class coach, which Arbiola is not. I mean, he looks like an AIDS patient. And B, is by cutting someone's head. You cannot have Birmingham, Mbappe, and Vinicius calling the shots. You need to cut one of their heads off and be a listen to the other two. You either offload one of them or 2 of them. That's the only way things turn around. For Madridistas, the thing that because Madrid won against Monaco 6-1, they're back, they're stupid. I mean, right before they sacked Xabi Alonso, he beat Real Betis 5-2. So what's the difference? There isn't. But anyways, yeah, Real Madrid is going to drop points because it's the same still shitty team, even under the AIDS patient Arbiola. Let me see. Denny says, I just feel Kunde is no longer trying to improve on his performance on the pitch. Maybe he just needs competition, right? Right now he has no competition, so there's no motivation for him to turn things around. Edward says, you've got to play regularly to play well. Lewy has been injured and he's not up to speed. He will improve as he plays more. Hit the like button, people. Yes, hit the like button. And yeah, you might be onto something there, my friend. Atmos says, hey, Barca News, just curious. Did you purchase Olmo with your own funds? If not, let's keep the conversation clear. Culés are thrilled to have him back in Barcelona. So let me get this straight. Let me analyze this moronic argument. Your argument is that we cannot criticize a player unless I buy him with my own funds. That's your moronic argument. Okay, let's analyze this argument. Because you too are talking about Dani Olmo. So my question to you is, did you purchase Olmo with your own funds? Because if not, you also can talk about Olmo, right? I'm applying the same moronic analysis here that you came up with, right? This is your own moronic argument. So in that case, you can't talk about Olmo either, right? Which, by the way, Olmo had a terrible match. Yes, he scored a goal, but he also had a terrible match. But according to your moronic thinking, I can't say he's bad and you can't say he's good because neither you and I paid for him with our own funds. Man. So I guess, by the way, next time you go to a movie theater and you watch a movie and you don't like it, guess what? You can't say that movie sucks because you didn't pay for the production of that movie with your own funds, right? So yeah, apparently, unless you pay for something, you cannot have an opinion. God bless you, my friend. God bless you. God bless you because you need it. You need it. With that kind of thinking, my God, I think I saw a rock yesterday that had a higher IQ than you. Anyways, Alexander says, Bo, Madrid are so deluded. I hope they draw Benfica. No team in La Liga can punish Madrid. Celta, Rayo, Elche are coming for them to drop points. I hope so, my friend. I hope so. And Paulie says, did you see the video where Arbeloa full swipes Mbappe? No, I have not seen it, but that's interesting. I'm definitely going to look it up. Anyways, that is all, ladies and gentlemen. That is all for the post-match live. That says I will be making news videos later tonight. I know I didn't do any videos yesterday. I was out all day. It was an incredibly long, busy, and hectic day for me. By the time I came back to the Airbnb, I was just exhausted. So I just took a shower and went to bed. But tonight, I will be posting some news videos of everything that happened yesterday and today. So by the end of today, you will be all caught up on everything Barca news. I did do the watch along, by the way. First time I do a watch along while I'm on the road. Had a lot of fun. So I think I'm going to be doing more watch alongs whenever I'm not home because before I didn't used to do them unless I was home. But anyways, that is all, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment. And as always, peace.